Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a first look at the brand new Calm Day Cinderace in the Ultra League. Now these battles were submitted to the channel as they are every Calm Day by the one and only Smudgy B, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Cinderace, as a part of its Calm Day, gets access to two new charge moves. The legacy move Blast Bird, which is given to all of the fire starters, and Cinderace does get its signature move, which is Pyro Ball. Pyro Ball is a charge attack for Cinderace. It does 75 damage for 40 energy. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Cinderace with its two new charge attacks in the Ultra League. Picking up a pretty tough lead in game number 1, Cradily into Titan. Titan has a pretty significant pacing advantage, but they fire off the Icicle Spear instantly, and that's going to be punished with a catch onto Skeleturge. Unfortunately, the opponent is running some crazy spice as out of nowhere comes in a Hisuian Zoroark. Zoroark fires off the Foul Play one turn before that Torch Song is available, and Foul Play will be enough to secure the knockout. This is a bit of a rough spot for Smudgy to be in, because no matter what he brings in, he's going to have to give up a shield because Zoroark just offers insane shield pressure. Cinderace will put up the shield, get a farm down, and exit with quite a lot of energy. Opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is going to be a Hex Driftblim, and now we get to see the animation for Pyro Ball. That is a pretty cool animation. I do like the fact that Cinderace is basically just like kicking a ball of fire at the opponent, going for Pyro Ball number 2 on the charge attack priority tie, and able to grab a shield from the Driftblim. Cinderace no shields, and it's an Icy Wind bait. Opponent's really going to regret that choice. Cinderace now makes another Pyro Ball. Again, it's a charge attack priority tie. Cinderace, it does not have a lot of bulk. What it does have is quite a lot of damage. In comes the Titan, that's going to be answered with Cradily, but Cradily having a big energy advantage should put it in the driver's seat for winning this game, as the opponent has no ability to reset these Rock Tomb debuffs. So Cradily shields up the Icicle Spear, fires off the Rock Tomb, and Titan just doesn't have the energy advantage that it would need. Titan would need to make 2 more Icicle Spears, and that's just simply not going to happen. Cradily does get low, but is able to hang on and make the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb was nerfed this season, it misses the knockout, but in comes Cinderace to snipe down with Fire Spin, and that is a good game. Hopping into game number 2, picking up a disastrous lead Cradily into Primeape. Immediate safe switch into Skeleturge, opponent is going to bank a little bit of energy and then send in Florges. This is honestly not the worst matchup for Skeleturge, even though Chilling Water hits for super effective and will apply an attack drop onto the Skeleturge. Skeleturge doesn't have to worry about any kind of fast move pressure here, and the Incinerates, even when debuffed, will slowly start to add up. Florges already at Chilling Water number 2, Skeleturge gonna be no shielding, Chilling Water lands, it misses the knockout, and Skeleturge will even get one more Incinerate and a final Shadow Ball before it eventually gets farmed down. The Shadow Ball lands, Fairy Wind takes the knockout, but this is an opportunity for Cradily to get a pretty significant energy head start. Clock hits 0, in comes Cradily, Florges firing off energy instantly. Florges, by going for the Chilling Water right away, all they're really doing is giving extra farm to the Cradily. Oh, it actually turns out that they make a last second move on 1 HP. I stand corrected. I did not think they were surviving that acid. In comes Cinderace. Oh no, there's an I swap, you swap, and Cinderace is going to be answered with Corviknight. The opponent was so ready to save the Primeape and pivot out that unfortunately, they have just set up their Corviknight to get absolutely destroyed. Cinderace may not be able to beat much in the Go Battle League, but it can defeat Corviknight. Corviknight baits with the Air Cutter, but they don't have enough energy to make the payback. Pretty easy no shield for the Cinderace, and Cinderace gets the farm down. Back in comes Primeape, shield comes up from the Cinderace. Primeape goes for a Cross Chop. Bit of an interesting moveset choice there. They're on Cross Chop Rage Fist, so they're not running Close Combat or Ice Punch, the Triple Legacy set. Pyro Ball is going to land, Smudgy snipes down with Acids, and despite a very rough lead, he's able to turn it around and get the win. A familiar face returns in the next match as Cradily leads into Corviknight. A safe switch into Skeleturge, going to be greeted once again with the Florges, and so far, I get a bit of a feeling of deja vu. Florges fires off the Chilling Water, Skeleturge, now at -1, will be able to hit back hard with the Shadow Ball. Ideally, Skeleturge would love to force shield advantage, so the opponent no shielding is definitely not ideal. This Chilling Water will come very close to knocking out Skeleturge no shields, and it will be able to hang on for the second game in a row. Now the opponent has to give up shield advantage or switch advantage, and they're going to be giving up the shield. I think this is probably for the best, because this will set up a pretty nice farm down for the Cradily, and hopefully with a shield advantage, Cinderace will be able to sweep. Chilling Water from the floor just not going to do a whole lot to the Cradily. Cradily this game does get the farm down, and in comes Cinderace. In the back, oh no, that's a Thundershock Belly Bolt. And this is going to be a very tricky game to win. Cinderace puts up the shield, Belly Bolt now at +1. The Cinderace will look to connect for devastating damage with the Blast Burn. Do they respect it? Yes, they do. Belly Bolts love to shield. These fire spins are adding up quite a bit, but now the Belly Bolt is about to be at +2 defense. That is a problem because now even a Blast Burn might not be enough to secure the KO. Cinderace does have a sky-high attack stat though. Cinderace fires off the Blast Burn, Belly Bolt survives, and what a read from the opponent. A simultaneous switch, Credilli into the Corviknight. The good news about this endgame is that by switching out, the Belly Bolt is no longer at +2 defense. Bad news, however, is the fact that Credilli had already taken some damage earlier in the game. That damage changes the Credilli Corviknight matchup quite substantially, because suddenly this matchup actually turns into a pretty okay matchup for the Corviknight. This Corviknight, even with the debuffs, will be able to get some pretty significant damage onto Credilli. Like, this payback's not going to knock out, but it will get them very low. In comes Cinderace, answered with the Belly Bolt, and unfortunately, Belly Bolt's able to hang on. It makes the move. Parabolic Charge is going to be getting them low. In comes Corviknight, and Corviknight sand attacks down the Cinderace. And unfortunately, this game will end in a loss, as close as it can get. But Corviknight is going to make the last second air cutter here. Oh, that is devastating. What a close game, almost able to come back from a really rough spot. But unfortunately, Cinderace just did not have the bulk needed. Great lead in the next match, Credilli into Lapras. Lapras gonna farm up energy, send in Cobalion. Bad news for Cobalion, as in comes Skeleturge. Skeleturge looks like tried to CMP tie there, but I believe the opponent fired off the Stone Edge one turn before that Torch Song was available. Now, Skeleturge gets to ramp up and really make life uncomfortable for the opponent. Stone Edge did quite a lot of damage, but this is a pretty miserable Psywave down for the Lapras. Instead, the opponent's going to be bringing in a Sand Attack Hippowdon. Hippowdon's not going to get the farm down before the boosted Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball gets the shield. There's the combo play with Credilli. Opponent catches onto Lapras, but that's still going to be taking devastating damage from the Grass Knot. Lapras immediately firing off energy. I believe this is only enough for a Sparkling Aria. They did not farm up to the Ice Beam, and Credilli is able to punish that with the No Shield. Credilli now fires off the Rock Tomb. There's really no way out for the opponent. Down goes Lapras. In comes Hippowdon. This team gets the win and the 2-shield flex, and Cinderace was not even needed. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Credilli into Shadow Typhlosion. Credilli will have a pacing advantage, able to make the Rock Tomb one turn before the first Blast Burn. So at bare minimum, Credilli will be able to force a shield advantage. Ideally, getting a catch and sneak onto the Skeleturge would be preferred, and Smudgy goes right for it. What a play. Skeleturge gets 20 free energy. Unfortunately, in comes a Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres definitely not what you're trying to bait out with a Skeleturge save switch, but Skeleturge is still able to get some damage on this Mon. Unfortunately, Galarian Moltres gets the perfect farm down. That is basically worst case scenario. 5 Sucker Punches taking the knockout. In comes Credilli. Credilli will be able to survive even a Brave Bird here, but it's going to hurt. The opponent wisely goes for the double fly, guaranteeing damage and guaranteeing an ability to force a shield. Because Credilli not only has to put up a shield, but will have to throw energy as well, because it simply cannot acid down before the third fly is available. So Credilli will finally get to take the knockout, but the opponent got insane value out of the Galarian Moltres. Very nice play to throw one acid and then defer that incinerate damage onto the Cinderace. Cinderace, unfortunately, is so frail that it has to respect a Blast Burn, and in the back is Togekiss. I think there's only one win con. Full send into Blast Burn. No, they shield it, and I think that is unfortunately going to be game over, as I do not trust Cinderace to survive this Aura Sphere. Well, it survives it, but not well enough to make the Pyro Ball, and that's going to give the perfect farm down to the Togekiss. Togekiss winning charge attack priority. Aura Sphere knocks out Credilli, and unfortunately that game will end with a loss. We move to the next match, Credilli into Primarina. I assume it's going to be Waterfall Primarina. I have seen a few people testing out this Mon. Primarina not going to throw their energy immediately. I was honestly expecting them to throw an alignment just to try and get some damage before Rock Tomb debuff was applied, but it looks like they're just going to look to overfarm and throw on good timing anyway. Credilli is going to put up the last second shield, and it ends up being a very good call as the opponent was actually running Moonblast. Moonblast wouldn't have knocked out. That would have done a lot of damage to Credilli. Credilli takes the knockout, in comes Guzzlord, and Guzzlord is a huge problem for this backline, so it is incredibly good to see here on the Credilli. Credilli fires off the Rock Tomb, no shield from the Guzzlord. Guzzlord is going to need multiple charge attacks if it wants to take the KO. Guzzlord overfarms to throw an alignment. They go for the Dragon Claw, potentially trying to fish for the knockout, but that's a debuffed Dragon Claw. It's just simply not going to take the KO. Shield comes up from the Guzzlord, in comes Cinderace. Opponent reveals their final Pokemon in the back is going to be Ampharos. I believe that was actually a charge attack priority type Blast Burn to a potential Brutal Swing. Blast Burn connects, and look at the Ampharos getting absolutely burnt alive. They fire off the Brutal Swing. Back in comes the Guzzlord. Guzzlord loses charge attack priority to Cinderace, and this is the Cinderace game right here. Looks like the opponent may have just force closed out of their app as the Pyro Ball lands. No, it actually didn't force close out of the app. They are still in there. It just paused for a while. You know what? Actually, it does look like they force close out of their app. I changed my mind once again. Yeah, they're not here anymore. Cinderace gets the Fire Spin down to Guzzlord. That's not something you see every day. That game will end in a win. Primarina is back in the next match, and once again running Waterfall. This Primarina is going to be firing off its energy immediately, just trying to land the Hydro Cannon before any Rock Tomb debuffs get applied. Opponent pivots out, save switching into Ampharos. The fact that they're preserving the Primarina is quite worrisome because Primarina is very strong into this backline. Oh my goodness, what a catch. That should be a Trailblaze thrown by the Ampharos, and it is, and that's going to be caught onto the Skeleturge. Skeleturge also got 20 free energy as it snuck through the entire Incinerate, and suddenly things are looking up. Down goes Ampharos, opponent sends back in the Primarina. Primarina trying for a farm down that they're simply just never going to get before the Shadow Ball is available. Shadow Ball will be shielded. Primarina, these waterfalls adding up. There's the pivot into Credilli. Credilli able to force the final shield or just simply knock them out. Opponent's going to go for a double shield. They are heavily investing in this Primarina. Credilli is going to be shielding right back, but the Primarina is only one off the next Hydro Cannon, so now Credilli kind of has to double shield. If Credilli can get an Acid down, that would be very good, but you know what's very bad? A Regidrago in the back. Regidrago is going to be immediately debuffed by the Rock Tomb, which does help. Credilli going to stay in, unfortunately realizing that it cannot make it to a charge stack. It's going to be forced to pivot out, and in comes Cinderace. Cinderace gets crushed by Dragon Energy, and unfortunately the Regidrago energy advantage was just simply too much. They get the back-to-back Dragon Energies. Potentially, if there was an immediate switch, and look at that, they get the catch of the Torch Song onto the Primarina. Realistically, they were going to win either way, but that's just some style points for the opponent. Back in comes Regidrago, getting the full farm down and exiting with the charge attack loaded for that poor Credilli. Unfortunately, they had a very good answer to fire in the back, and Regidrago just absolutely swept. We see a very familiar matchup in the next match, Credilli into Skeleturge. Now Skeleturge will get outpaced here by one singular turn, and Skeleturge has a bit of a choice to make. Do they end up undertapping, or do they throw one in the move? I feel like throwing one in the move means that it's more likely that your move gets caught, so I honestly don't hate undertapping, because they can still fire off the next Shadow Ball on the charge attack priority tie, and that's a charge attack priority tie that Skeleturge is always going to win. Skeleturge unfortunately makes a catastrophic error. They end up baiting with the Torch Song, expecting the shield, wanting to try and boost their attack back up, and I think that's going to cost them in a pretty significant way. Billy banks energy, in comes Skeleturge. This is a debuffed Skeleturge. They're at -1, but preserving HP will still be very valuable. The opponent is going to be sending in a Staraptor. Now that's a Pokemon that I have not seen in a very long time. But Wing Attack did get buffed, which means Staraptor does get a little bit of its pacing back. Unfortunately, Staraptor's biggest problem is the fact that it is insanely frail. It cannot take a hit. Opponent ends up firing off a charge stack on alignment, maybe potentially worried about getting sniped there by the energy on the Credilli, but Skeleturge more than happy to no shield, farm down. In the back, they have an Alolan Sandslash, and this is a boosted Skeleturge. Skeleturge fires off the Shadow Ball, in comes Cinderace. Cinderace snipes down with Fire Spins. Back in comes the Skeleturge, and that's going to be a win. Hopping to the final match, leading Credilli into Dragonite, and it's actually the dapper Dragonite rocking the sunglasses and the bow tie. Credilli, unfortunately going to get outpaced. The opponent ends up firing off their charge attack on alignment. Shield does come up. They do full send the superpower, and there is a catch attempt onto Melmetal. Now, Melmetal, man, we are just having a trip down memory lane here, as we have Melmetal, we have Staraptor, and this Melmetal has Rock Slide. Oh no! Rock Slide absolutely shreds the Cinderace. Cinderace returning fire with the Pyro Ball. Shield comes up from the Melmetal. And Cinderace's absolutely pathetic excuse for a stat product is unfortunately on full display in this battle, as after the Rock Slide, it almost got Thundershock down. In comes Skeleturge. Skeleturge can't quite get the farm down before Melmetal does make the debuffed Rock Slide. Rock Slide still not going to do a ton of damage, and now Skeleturge has a 40 energy head start. Opponent waits down the timer, they send in Giratina, and this is exactly where this team wants to see Giratina. Skeleturge launches Shadow Ball, Giratina with the no shield, and there's an immediate pivot into Credilli. Credilli fires the Rock Tomb at Giratina. Giratina puts up the shield. I don't think Rock Tomb would have quite knocked out, but then they send in the Dragonite, and then Dragonite's just going to get erased by the Rock Tomb. Rock Tomb picks up the KO, back in comes the Giratina, but there's simply no charge attack that Giratina could throw that would secure the knockout. They go for the Dragon Claw, and Credilli just does not care. Credilli shakes off that damage, fires back with the Rock Tomb. Even though Rock Tomb got nerfed this season, it's still taking the knockout and securing the win. And now some final thoughts on Cinderace and its 2 new Community Day moves. I'll start with the good, and then I'll also talk about the bad. The good is that Cinderace is meaningfully buffed here. Cinderace previously was stuck with Flame Charge and Flamethrower as its fire-type charge attack options, and it didn't learn anything cheaper than 50 energy. So getting access to a 40 energy Pyro Ball is a pretty significant buff for this Mon. However, problems definitely still remain for Cinderace. And that starts with the fact that its fast move Fire Spin is pretty mediocre. Now, Fire Spin, if it was a different typing, we've seen those parameters, but on a different type, have better results. But Fire is just not a great offensive typing for a fast move. We've seen Incinerate have results in the past just because it has overwhelmingly good stats, and a move like Ember where the damage really doesn't matter, it's all about energy generation, but a more middle-of-the-road fast move that is Fire, unfortunately, just kind of falls flat. And Cinderace would really like some coverage, or kind of an overwhelmingly good fast move because it is very, very glassy. Cinderace's stats are pretty similar to that of Morpeko, which does not really inspire confidence because the only reason Morpeko's good is because it has this form change mechanic with Aura Wheel. So we're already not off to a great start, and now we don't really have coverage either because we're Fire Spin, Pyro Ball, and Blast Burn. This Pokemon also does learn Focus Blast, but realistically, Focus Blast is too expensive of a nuke move to be considered real coverage, as if a Focus Blast is ever shielded in a game, the game kind of just instantly ends, and with how glassy this Pokemon is, I don't think it's super likely that it's going to be getting to many Focus Blasts throughout the course of the battle. So, this is an improvement for Cinderace, but unfortunately, Cinderace does have a pretty long way to go in terms of its meta viability. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed watching it, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.